Mark of the Beast, Revelation 12:13 and 14. What warning has God given in the last book of the Bible in the form of 3 angels' messages? And I saw another angel fly in the midst of heaven, having the everlasting gospel to preach unto them that dwell on the earth, and to every nation and kindred and tongue and people, saying with a loud voice, Fear God, and give glory to him, for the hour of his judgment is come, and worship him that made heaven and earth and the sea and the fountains of waters. And there followed another angel, saying, Babylon is fallen, that great city, because she made all nations drink of the wine of the wrath of her fornication. And the third angel followed them, saying with a loud voice, If any man worship the beast and his image, and receive his mark in his forehead or in his hand, the same shall drink of the wine of the wrath of God, which is poured out without mixture into the cup of his indignation. And he shall be tormented with fire and brimstone in the presence of the holy angels and in the presence of the Lamb. Revelation 14:6-10. As we can see from these Bible verses, it has to do with worship. And there appeared another wonder in heaven, and behold, a red dragon, and his tail drew the third part of heaven. And there appeared a great wonder in heaven, a woman clothed with the sun, and the moon under her feet, and upon her head a crown of 12 stars. And she, being with child, cried, travailing in birth, and pain to be delivered. Revelation 12:1 and 2. A woman in prophecy represents a church. See Jeremiah 6:2 and Isaiah 51:16. And there appeared another wonder in heaven, and behold, a great red dragon, having 7 heads and 10 horns, and 7 crowns upon his heads. And his tail drew the third part of the stars of heaven, and did cast them to the earth. And the dragon stood before the woman which was ready to be delivered, for to devour her child as soon as it was born. Revelation 12:3 and 4. Who was the dragon? The dragon was cast out, that old serpent called the devil and Satan, which deceiveth the whole world. And there was war in heaven. Michael and his angels fought against the dragon, and the dragon fought and his angels, and prevailed not. Neither was their place found any more in heaven. Revelation 12:7-8. And the great dragon was cast out, that old serpent called the devil and Satan, which deceiveth the whole world. He was cast out into the earth, and his angels were cast out with him. Revelation 12:9. Why did Lucifer or Satan get cast out of heaven? Because he wanted the worship that belonged to God and wanted to take his place. How art thou fallen from heaven, O Lucifer, son of the morning? How art thou cut down to the ground, which did weaken the nations? For thou hast said in thine heart, I will ascend into heaven, I will exalt my throne above the stars of God, I will be like the Most High. Isaiah 14:12-14. The devil said to Jesus, All these things will I give thee, if thou wilt fall down and worship me. Then said Jesus unto him, Get thee hence, Satan, for it is written, Thou shalt worship the Lord thy God, and him only shalt thou serve. Matthew 4:8-10. After Satan saw that he was cast out of heaven, he made war with the woman, God's church, who keep the commandments of God. And when the dragon saw that he was cast out unto the earth, he persecuted the woman, which brought forth the man-child. Revelation 12:13. And the dragon was wroth with the woman, and went to make war with the remnant of her seed, which keep the commandments of God, and have the testimony of Jesus Christ. Revelation 12:17. Who did Satan use to persecute God's people? He used world kingdoms and their governments, like pagan Rome and then papal Rome. And I stood upon the sand of the sea, and saw a beast rise up out of the sea, having 7 heads and 10 horns, and upon his horns 10 crowns, and upon his heads the name of blasphemy. Revelation 13:1. And the beast which I saw was like unto a leopard, and his feet were as the feet of a bear, and his mouth as the mouth of a lion. And the dragon gave him his power and his seat and great authority. Revelation 13:2. We saw in previous studies that the first beast of Revelation 13 and Daniel 7 was none other than the Roman Catholic Church, the papacy. Here is a quick overview. The little horn or kingdom came up among them, the 10 horns which were the kingdoms of Western Europe, Daniel 7:8. So it would be a little kingdom somewhere in Western Europe. It would have a man at its head who could speak for it, Daniel 7:8, the Pope. It would pluck up or uproot 3 kingdoms, Daniel 7:8. It did destroy the Herulds in 493 AD, Vandals in 534 AD, and the Ostrogoths in 538 AD. It would make war with and wear out or persecute the saints, Daniel 7:21 through 25. It did through the papal inquisitions of the Middle Ages. It would emerge from the pagan Roman Empire, the 4th world kingdom, Daniel 7:7 and 8. God's people, the saints, would be given into his hand for a time and times and the dividing of time, Daniel 7:25. It did from 538 AD to 1798. It would speak great words against or blaspheme God, Daniel 7:25, Revelation 13:5. It would think to change times and laws, Daniel 7:25. It did attempt to change God's law, the Sabbath to Sunday. And the last identifying point is the number of the beast, the numerical equivalent of the formal Latin title given to the Pope, Vicarius Filii Dei, is 666. Let no man deceive you by any means, for that day shall not come, except there come a falling away first, and that man of sin be revealed, the son of perdition, who opposes and exalteth himself above all that is called God, or that is worshipped, so that he, as God, sitteth in the temple of God, showing himself that he is God. 2 Thessalonians 2:3 and 4. Here is wisdom. Let him that has understanding count the number of the beast, for it is the number of a man, and his number is 666. Revelation 13:18. A book written in 1608 by a German Protestant scholar shows how the Pope's title, Vicarius Filii Dei, adds up to 666, possibly one of the earliest known books on the subject. How did Satan use the papacy to persecute God's people? In the year 538 AD, a decree of Emperor Justinian went into effect that assigned absolute preeminence to the Church of Rome. Church and state joined. The result was millions of Christians who would not give up their faith were tortured and lost their lives during the papal inquisitions. And it was given unto him to make war with the saints and to overcome them, and power was given him over all kindreds and tongues and nations. And all that dwell upon the earth shall worship him, whose names are not written in the book of life of the Lamb slain from the foundation of the world. Revelation 13:7 through 8. For a period of 1,260 years, from AD 538 to AD 1798, the apostate church sought to destroy quote-unquote heretics, Protestants who were in fact God's remnant people. During the persecution in Europe, God opened up a way of escape for his church in America. And to the woman were given 2 wings of a great eagle, that she might fly into the wilderness, into her place, where she is nourished for a time and times and a half a time, from the face of the serpent. Revelation 13:14. At the end of the 1,260 years, in 1798, French General Berthier marched his armies into Rome and took Pope Pius VI into captivity. As was prophesied, the papacy received its deadly wound. And I saw one of his heads as it were wounded to death. Revelation 13:3. He that leadeth into captivity shall go into captivity. He that killeth with the sword must be killed with the sword. Revelation 13:10. Which nation, the second beast of Revelation 13, was predicted to arise around the same time the papacy was receiving its deadly wound? And I beheld another beast coming up out of the earth, and he had 2 horns like a lamb, and he spake as a dragon. Revelation 13:11. The papal captivity mentioned in verse 10 took place in 1798, And the new power, verse 11, was seen emerging at that time. The United States declared its independence in 1776, voted the Constitution in 1787, adopted the Bill of Rights in 1791, and was recognized as a world power by 1798. The timing definitely fits America. No other power could qualify. What is the significance of the beast coming out of the earth? This nation arises out of the earth instead of out of the water, as did the other nations mentioned in Daniel and Revelation. We know from Revelation that water symbolizes areas of the world that have a large population. The waters which thou sawest, where the horse sits, are peoples and multitudes and nations and tongues. Revelation 17:15. Therefore, the earth represents the opposite. It means that this new nation would arise in an area of the world that had been virtually unpopulated before the late 1700s. It could not arise among the crowded and struggling nations of the Old World. It had to come up in a sparsely populated continent like America. What is symbolized by its two lamb-like horns and absence from crowns? The two horns represent America's two governing principles, civil and religious liberty, also republicanism, a government without a king, and Protestantism, a church without a pope. Quote, the government of the United States was established upon the principles of the total separation of the government from any church or religion, and specifically the Christian religion, and this for the express purpose of escaping any establishment of the Catholic Church or religion. Jefferson and Madison and their fellow workers for civil and religious liberty declared that, quote, to judge for ourselves and to engage in the exercise of religion agreeably to the dictates of our own conscience is an inalienable right which, upon the principles on which the gospel was first propagated and the Reformation from popery carried on, can never be transferred to another, end quote. They said that, quote, it is impossible for the magistrate to adjudge the right of preference among the various sects that profess the Christian faith without erecting a claim to infallibility, which would lead us back to the Church of Rome, end quote. They opposed all governmental favors to the Christian religion because, as they said, distant as it may be in its present form from the Inquisition, it differs from it only in a degree. The one is the first step, the other is the last, in the career of intolerance, end quote. Thus spoke the heroes and patriots who established on this continent the separation of religion and the state as a governmental principle, and who made the government of the United States with the principle declared in its Constitution. And they did it as they repeatedly declared that the people of the United States might not be led back to Rome, to popery, and to the Inquisition, end quote. A.T. Jones, AMS, March 15, 1894, page 81.6. What does it mean when the prophecy in Revelation 13:11 says, America will speak as a dragon? It means that the U.S., under the influence of Satan, will in the end time force people to worship contrary to conscience or be punished and eventually be killed. And he exercises all the power of the first beast before him, and causes the earth and them which dwell therein to worship the first beast, whose deadly wound was healed. Revelation 13:12. Saying to them that dwell on the earth, that they should make an image to the beast, which had the wound by a sword and did live. And he had power to give life unto the image of the beast, that the image of the beast should both speak and cause that as many as would not worship the image of the beast should be killed. Revelation 13:14 and 15. In Revelation 13:3, the Bible predicted that the first beast, the papacy's deadly wound, would be healed. When did this start to happen? In the year 1929, the Lateran Treaty. Quote, upon ratification of the Lateran Treaty, the papacy recognized the state of Italy, with Rome as its capital. Italy, in return, recognized the papal sovereignty over the Vatican City and secured full independence for the Pope, end quote, Britannica.com. And I saw one of his heads as it were wounded to death, and his deadly wound was healed. and all the world wondered after the beast. Revelation 13:3. An article in Pew Research Center, December 11, 2014, says Pope Francis's image positive in much of the world. What is the image of the beast? Let's look at what the papacy says is her symbol or mark of authority. Question: which is the Sabbath day? Answer: Saturday is the Sabbath day. Question: why do we observe Sunday instead of Saturday? Answer: we observe Sunday instead of Saturday because the Catholic Church transferred the solemnity from Saturday to Sunday. That is from the Convert's Catechism of Catholic Doctrine. Quote, Sunday is our mark of authority. The Church is above the Bible, and this transference of the Sabbath observance is proof of that fact. End quote. That is from Catholic Record of London, Ontario, September 1st, 1923. What is God's mark or symbol of authority? I gave them my Sabbaths to be a sign between me and them, that they might know that I am the Lord that sanctify them. Ezekiel 20:12. Bind up the testimony, seal the law among my disciples. Isaiah 8:16. And we are his witnesses of these things, and so is also the Holy Ghost, whom God has given to them that obey him. Acts 5:32. This is the covenant that I will make with them after those days, says the Lord. I will put my laws into their hearts, and in their minds will I write them. Hebrews 10:16. Keep my commandments and live, and my law as the apple of thine eye. Bind them upon thy fingers, write them upon the tables of thine heart. Proverbs 7:2-3. If you love me, keep my commandments. John 14:15. The seventh day is the Sabbath of the Lord. What is the history of Sunday, and where did it come from? As we can see from prior world empires, it comes from pagan sun worship. History of world empires: Babylon, pagan system, sun worship. Medo-Persia, Baal worship, sun worship. Greece, pagan, sun worship. Rome, Mithraism, sun worship. Papacy, Sunday, from paganism, sun worship. Emperor Constantine in the year AD 313 ordered that Christians be given full religious freedom. Quote, he himself accepted the new faith, but continued to take part in the festivals of the old gods. His particular favorite was the Greek sun god Apollo. When he proclaimed a weekly day of rest by law for the empire in AD 321, he named it Sunday. End quote. Sun worship was very popular with many pagan religions, and some of them made monuments for the worship of the sun called obelisks. In the Encyclopedia Britannica, obelisk tapered monolithic pillar originally erected in pairs at the entrances of ancient Egyptian temples. Characteristically include religious dedications usually to the sun god. During the time of the Roman emperors, many obelisks were transported from Egypt to what is now Italy. At least a dozen went to the city of Rome itself. Late in the 19th century, the government of Egypt divided a pair of obelisks, giving one to the United States and the other to Great Britain. One now stands in Central Park, New York City. A well-known example of a modern obelisk is the Washington Monument, which was completed in Washington, D.C. in 1884. Interestingly, across from both the U.S. Capitol and the Vatican Basilica are obelisks. In the end times, the U.S. will make an image to the beast by legislating Sunday worship and forcing people to obey or face death. This action is a copy image of the church-state combination that the papacy had during the Middle Ages when millions were killed for their faith. And his deadly wound was healed, and all the world wondered after the beast. Revelation 13:3. And he had power to give life unto the image of the beast, that the image of the beast should both speak and cause that as many as would not worship the image of the beast should be killed. Revelation 13:15-17. Here is a picture of Pope Francis's historic visit to the U.S. Congress in 2015, Church and State Uniting. What kind of laws will the U.S. make to enforce the Mark of the Beast? One example is blue laws, or Sunday closing laws, that were established in early U.S. history. They prohibited people from working, buying, and selling on Sunday. And he causes all, both small and great, rich and poor, free and bond, to receive a mark in their right hand or in their foreheads, and that no man might buy or sell, save he that had the mark or the name of the beast, or the number of his name. Revelation 13, 16, and 17. The forehead represents the mind, Hebrew 10, 16. A person will be marked in the forehead by a decision to keep Sunday as a holy day. The hand is a symbol of work, Ecclesiastes 9:10. A person will be marked in the hand by working on God's holy Sabbath, or by going along with Sunday laws for practical reasons, job, family, etc. Though invisible to men, God will know who has which mark. 2 Timothy 2:19. Although most blue laws have been repealed, they are still on the books in many states. Recently, however, there has been talk of bringing back blue laws to give people rest in the face of the pandemic, climate issues, and the moral state of our country. Here we have some articles regarding bringing back blue laws. The first article is entitled, "Could Sabbath Closure Laws Make a Comeback?" The second one is entitled, "In Our Opinion, Communities Yearn for Religious and Secular Sabbaths." They wrote, in the famous Supreme Court case McGowan v. Maryland, Chief Justice Earl Warren wrote in defense of Maryland's blue law prohibiting commerce on Sunday. The state's purpose is not merely to provide a one-day 7-work stoppage, he wrote. The state seeks to set one day apart from all others as a day of rest. And the third article is entitled, "Build Blue Laws Back." The Pope in 2015 wrote an encyclical called Laudato Si for the environment, in which he gave the solution of Sunday rest to heal the planet. Here we have some articles regarding this. The first article is entitled, "Slow Sunday, the Simple Solution to Global Warming. Using Sunday as a day of rest and renewal would be good for our personal health as well as the health of the planet." The second one is entitled, "A Sabbath for the Earth and the Poor, the Challenge of Pope Francis." They quote, "Sunday, like the Jewish Sabbath, is meant to be a day which heals our relationships with God, with ourselves, with others, and with the world." That's from Laudato Si, paragraph 237. The Religion News Service wrote an article comparing the Pope's encyclical and the proposed Green New Deal, in which they quote his encyclical suggesting that legislation could be reached very quickly when people are, quote, "adequately motivated to accept them," end quote. The article is entitled, "Pope Francis Laudato Si versus the Green New Deal," in which they say, quote, "Francis' prescription for ecological culture change occurs primarily in his May 2015 encyclical Laudato Si. In his magisterial document, Francis rightly insists that the existence of laws and regulations won't work to curb the behaviors producing climate change by themselves. In order for laws to bring about the necessary long-term effects, the majority of the members of society must be adequately motivated to accept them and personally transformed to respond. We must also celebrate rest, especially from buying and selling, by returning to a focus on keeping the Sabbath. Think 10 years isn't enough time for such dramatic changes to take hold? You underestimate the power of changing hearts to bring about life-changing legislation. Our culture could also have an ecological conversion, perhaps even faster," end quote. The next article is entitled, "Vatican Calls Greta Thunberg Great Witness of Church's Environmental Teaching." The sign she's holding says, "Join the climate strike, celebrate Laudato Si, May 24." Here is an article that came out in Newsweek magazine calling on humanity to go back to the 10 Commandments, which includes a global day of rest for the climate. The article was entitled, "For Our Sin of Emissions, 10+1 Climate Commandments." Quote, "The rise of the ancient Egyptian dynasties coincided with the rise of worship of Ra, the sun god. A new era of renewables must shine out of Egypt this November, or our civilization, like that of the ancient Egyptians, will be doomed." When religious leaders of all faiths ascend Mount Sinai on November 13 during COP27, they will seek to touch the heart of humanity and deliver a prophetic message. Sinai power worked once before to fuel moral revolutions. It must work again. End quote. And quote, one of the ideas was returning to the 10 Commandments given at Sinai. And a global weekly non-carbon day of rest could reduce emissions of the world by a seventh. End quote. Newsweek, August 25, 2022. Here are some articles that came out during the pandemic calling for Sunday lockdowns for health and the environment. The first article is entitled, "When Earth Demands Sabbath, Learning from the Coronavirus Pandemic." This might be the first time since the beginning of the industrial age the Earth is finally getting a break from the relentless activity and growth of human industrial production, it said. The second article is entitled, "Pope Used Pandemic to Give the Environment a Vital Rest." And the third article is entitled, "French Archbishop Calls for Monthly Lockdown Sunday." It says, French Bishops' Conference head Archbishop Eric de Moulins-Beaufort has said, the recent pandemic shutdown had shown both the planet and its people needed a real day of Sunday rest. In 2019, the Catholic Herald wrote an interesting article on Kanye West's Closed on Sunday song and quoted a passage from a book written by Pope Benedict XVI, which said, quote, "The Sabbath is at the heart of social legislation," end quote. There is no doubt as to what the papacy's end goal is, a Sunday law. And don't forget who gave him his seat, power, and great authority, the dragon or Satan. Rapidly, the world is confederating into two groups, those who follow God and those who follow Satan. Time is running out. The great controversy is entering its final stages. During the final crisis, everyone must make a choice to obey the commandments of God or the traditions of men, to keep God's true Sabbath or Satan's counterfeit, to receive the seal of God or the mark of the beast. Now is the time to settle the issue. Quote, "Blessed are they that do his commandments, that they may have right to the tree of life, and may enter in through the gates into the city." End quote. Revelation 22:14. Here is the patience of the saints. Here are they that keep the commandments of God and the faith of Jesus. Revelation 14:12. "And I saw as it were a sea of glass, mingled with fire, and them that had gotten the victory over the beast, and over his image, and over his mark, and over the number of his name, stand on the sea of glass, having the harps of God, and they sing the song of Moses, the servant of God, and the song of the Lamb, saying, Great and marvelous are thy works, Lord God Almighty. Just and true are thy ways, thou King of saints. Who shall not fear thee, O Lord, and glorify thy name? For thou only art holy. For all nations shall come and worship before thee, for thy judgments are made manifest." Revelation 15:2-4.